The world is a very strange place. Extraordinary things happening to ordinary people. People just like you encountering the stuff of nightmares. I'm Carol Ann. Welcome to the InBetween. I know that this world is full of strange happenings, but it never ceases to amaze me how many people right here in our InBetweener audience are on the receiving end of these encounters. So today we have 6 more of your very own stories of the world showing its unexpected side. A little over 21 years ago, David experienced something that still, on occasion, makes his blood run cold. David grew up going camping with his dad on Bear Island, which is, you guessed it, shaped like a bear, in the middle of Percy Priest Lake in Tennessee. Doesn't have any bears, it just looks like one. The island is only accessible by boat, and David and his dad go at least one weekend every summer. They have the perfect spot that they go to in a little bay area of the island that has a clearing in the woods where they set up camp. Has the perfect view of the lake and the best sunrises and sunsets. The summer of 2004, David is 11 years old and they picked the weekend of the 4th of July for that year's trip. They head out Friday morning, July 2nd, get to the island, set up camp, and spend the rest of the day having fun out on the lake, including watching a fireworks show later that night from the boat, which, I gotta agree with David on this one, is a pretty spectacular experience. After the show, they head back to camp, and David is pretty tired after his long day of fun and decides to call it a night. He crawls into his sleeping bag and falls asleep to the sound of the waves lapping on the shore. Dad stays up with the fire for a while, but eventually joins David in the tent. Their tent sleeps 2 to 3 people and has windows on the sides. As you go in the tent, David is sleeping on the left and has the window cover unzipped to about halfway to let the breeze through. But even with those idyllic sleeping conditions, David wakes up from a dead sleep with an intense feeling of fear. The hair on the back of his neck and on his arms is standing straight up. He tries to listen for anything going on outside, trying to figure out exactly what woke him up. And all he can hear is that he can't hear anything. No crickets chirping, no owls, no wind, not even the waves splashing onto the beach. For reasons he's not sure of to this day, he turns his head to the window of the tent. It is pitch black outside, so there's nothing to see except a pair of red glowing eyes staring down at him. It's so black out that he can't even make out a figure, just those eyes. He's paralyzed with fear and locked in a staring contest with the floating red eyes. It takes everything David has in him to break the stare down, turn his head around, and shake his dad. Dad, wake up! Something's staring at us through the window. His dad half wakes up and tells David it's just a raccoon, and he hits the side of the tent to scare it off, with his eyes closed the entire time. David stays turned toward his dad, trying to tell himself that his dad is right. It's just a raccoon, but he can't help it. He has to look. He turns his head toward the window, and the eyes are still there, staring down at him, obviously not affected by Dad's scare tactics. David turns his head back toward his dad, squeezes his eyes shut, and prays that whatever this thing is, it goes away. Somehow, he manages to fall back to sleep, and the next thing he knows, it's morning. As soon as they both get up, David tries to tell his dad about what he saw in the window, but his dad just says there's nothing out there that has red glowing eyes. It was just a raccoon or something. So David decides to just leave it alone. Funny thing is, they're supposed to be staying until Sunday. But that morning, David's dad says, "Sorry, kid, we're going home." They pack up all their gear, do a little last-minute fishing, and head on home. Once the calendar flips another year and it's time to start planning the 2005 trip, David's dad says, "Sorry, Bear Island is closed this year." Now, David still hasn't quite gotten over last year yet, so he can't say that he's all that disappointed. But not only do they not go in 2005, but they never go back to Bear Island again. And just so you know, I checked with Grok, and there are no records or even conversations anywhere about Bear Island being closed to campers in 2005. Now that David is an adult, he wonders. He wonders if his dad actually did see something that night, but didn't want to tell David and freak him out. He wonders if his dad lied to cover up why they never went back. David's not sure what he encountered that night, but he's been doing his internet homework and thinks maybe it was a dogman. There are similarities. The woods going silent, dogman eyes are usually reported to be amber, red, or blue in color, and they seem to enjoy the fear that they create in those they encounter. That certainly is true of David's encounter, but if it was a dogman, it was the quietest and cleanest one ever. No growling and no obnoxious smell. But if it wasn't dogman, that leaves an even scarier question. What was it? Ken is about as far from a city slicker as you can get.
That's right.
He grew up on a ranch/farm in a very rural area of Louisiana and has hunted and fished his entire life. He is a pretty big dude at 6'8" and over 300 pounds. So it's not a big surprise that he's the guy who's tapped to work with the cattle and the horses. So he has a lot of experience dealing with large animals. In his 20s, Ken moves to Texas, where he has a ranch close to 100 acres next to the Texas-Louisiana line and the Sabine River bottoms. After working his ranch for about a year, he starts having some issues with coyotes and wild hogs. So a few nights a week, he goes out either by himself or with his neighbor that owns hog dogs, and they do their best to thin out the hogs. One night, Ken goes out on his own to his normal spot, right on a tree line that overlooks a field, and sets up his game call, which is basically a speaker that plays a high-pitched, injured rabbit sound. That's like music to the ears of any local predators. He plays the call, waits for a while, and nothing's moving. Odd, considering that everything from bobcats to raccoons usually come running thinking they're getting a free meal. And in the quiet, he gets a funny feeling, but he doesn't see anything. So he stays there for a while, even though nothing is moving around, until he finally decides to pack it up and head back to the house. He's got to get to bed so he can get up early to take a buddy fishing on a lake on the ranch the next morning. Next morning, Ken and his buddy are driving towards the lake, which is right on the same road he took to the spot he was hunting the night before. Once they get about 100 feet past his hunting spot, they see a dead hog on the ground. It is about 200 pounds and is just crushed. And the trees next to it are splattered with blood and have a bunch of bark knocked off. Something picked up this hog and bashed it against the tree trunks. Ken can't help but think about that funny feeling he got the night before and has no idea what animal can grab a hog and slam it into a tree like that. Like I said, Ken is a big dude, and he says even he can't come close to doing something like that. So the question is, did he interrupt something when he got there for his hunt? Or did something happen while he was playing the loud call? Or maybe something went nuts because of the game call. Ken has no idea, but either way, he gets the feeling that it's all tied together with that weird feeling he had. A year later, Ken is watching an episode of a show called These Woods Are Haunted that is featuring the encounter story of a deer hunter named Mike Woolley, who's chased out of the woods near Keachai, Louisiana, by a couple of aggressive Bigfoot. And the light goes on in Ken's head. That's only about 5 miles away from his ranch. Well, that's a rabbit hole that Ken dives into head first and finds a ton of stories and sightings in that area, which also just happens to be due south of the infamous Fouke monster sightings in Fouke, Arkansas. So Ken's new theory is that the whole area from where Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana meet, all the way south to the Toledo Bend area, is very sparsely populated and undeveloped, which would be a perfect highway for whatever it is that's out there. Ken still goes hunting at night, but he has upgraded his weapons to something with a little more stopping power. But he still swears it's going to take a next level kind of encounter to keep him out of the woods. This interesting little story comes from InBetweener superfan Steven about an encounter he and his wife Melissa have near the Island Creek area of Pikeville, Kentucky, just a couple of years ago. They have a whole bunch of dogs. So one day they're out on a trail, walking the dogs like maybe 10 minutes out from the back of their house. And they're cruising along, and all of a sudden, the dogs stop. Now, they've gotten pretty good at reading their dogs. The dogs have done a really good job in the past of alerting them to, like, copperheads or other kinds of snakes or whatever. So as they're walking, the dogs key on something, they pay attention. The dogs are in front of them and they turn themselves sideways. So it's like they're blocking their people from going any further. Steven is looking out and he doesn't see anything that would be a problem. So he kind of kneels down to get kind of on the same eye line as the dogs, trying to see what it is that they see. He's looking into the trees and he sees a tree right on the edge of the tree line. It's only like a couple inches around at its widest. So obviously the branches coming off are pretty thin, like maybe the size of your finger. Steven sees one of those thin branches kind of pulled down, like there's a weight on it. Something is pulling that branch down. He's trying to calculate what is happening in his head when he sees a shimmer in the area around the branch, only a couple of feet off the ground, so short, but a shimmer like the predator cloaking shimmer or like the shimmer of a heat wave. And as soon as he sees this, he tells his wife, "Get back to the house," and he stands up. Those two actions together, he said, it's almost like it clued whatever this thing is into the fact that it was now busted, that it's been seen. And he says it disappeared in a millisecond. Not like it poofed away in a magic cloud, but more like it went so fast that it just disappeared. Melissa didn't see the shimmer, but she actually saw the branch come back into its regular resting position after whatever it was let go of the branch and sped away. Steven has no idea what that was, but he and Melissa both will tell you something was in those woods. When Vernon and his best friend, who we'll call Jason, were in high school, they loved urban exploring before urban exploring was a thing. They were always on a quest to find something creepy or paranormal. And guess what? They found it. Sometime around the year 2000, Vernon is 16 and has a curfew of 11 p.m. Jason is 18 and either doesn't have a curfew or his curfew is later than Vernon's. Either way, they always keep track of time so Vernon isn't late. It's a nice fall Friday or Saturday, and the two of them jump into Jason's truck and head to the movies. On the way back, they always take the back county roads, taking different roads each time, looking for anything cool or creepy. On this particular night, they decide to head for the Pin Oak Cemetery in Sims, Illinois. The church is gone, but there's still a single-lane road going down the middle of the gravestones. They pull onto the cemetery road and park the truck with the headlights shining in so they can see where they're walking down this lane that's only about 150 feet long. They walk the entire length of the road down and everything's fine. Nothing happens. Once they make it to the end and turn around to come back, they realize that the headlights on the truck were a bad idea. The lights are shining right in their eyes. They can't see anything but the black shadows from the gravestones on either side of them. About a third of the way back, they hear steps in the fall leaves covering the grass. Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. They both stop, only to hear a crunch, crunch, as if something takes 2 more steps after they stop. They start walking again, and after they've gone about another 30 feet, the sound of crunching footsteps returns. Again, the 2 boys stop, and the crunching stops. They start again, and the crunching footsteps start again. After about another 30 feet, they stop a 3rd time. But this time, whatever's behind them doesn't stop. It starts running. Both boys take off in a full-out sprint to the truck with whatever it is following close behind. They make it to the truck, start it up, and move the truck around a little bit to try to use the headlights as a searchlight to search the rest of the cemetery grounds. They don't see a thing. So, officially spooked, they decide it's time to head home. They've had enough adventuring for one night. As they leave the cemetery, they go down a small hill and pass a sign that says 1-lane bridge. The next thing Vernon knows, they're about 10 feet from his driveway and Jason is hitting the brakes because he's freaked out too. They both look at each other. How the hell do we get here? But the scariest part? Vernon is 2 hours late for his curfew. From that cemetery to his house in Sisney, Illinois, should have only taken them about 15 minutes. They lost 2 hours that night, and neither of them can remember anything after crossing that 1-lane bridge sign. Needless to say, after that night, Vernon and Jason officially hung up their Urban X tennies for good. Sophia Marks grew up in Aurora, Colorado. And you can't grow up in Aurora without hearing about a place called the Third Bridge. The Third Bridge is just this little nondescript overpass spanning the Kiowa Creek. And in this case, even calling it a creek is being pretty generous. This particular spot in the creek where the bridge goes over is supposedly the location of a massacre of Native Americans whose angry spirits still remain to haunt the bridge and are allegedly the source of many car accidents, claiming many lives. Sophia is the kind of person who wants to see things for herself before making any decision. So naturally, in the case of the Third Bridge, she wants to see it for herself before she decides if she's going to believe the hype. So it's Halloween night in 2015, and Sophia's in college. This would be the perfect night to go see a haunted bridge. Most of her friends politely decline what they consider a suicide mission, but her friends Sean and Ted are up for the challenge. The 3 head out just in time to be at the bridge at midnight. Now remember, this is Colorado at the end of October, which means
winter is coming.
Winter is coming. And this particular fall has been really cold, so there is snow and ice everywhere. Everything is frozen. From the moment they arrive and stop the car on the bridge, Sophia can feel a change in the air. She doesn't want to get out of the car. So even though it's cold, they all roll down their windows, looking and listening for anything that might prove whether the bridge is haunted or not. After a few minutes, Sophia says, "So, I guess it's all just a story. I mean, I'm not hearing anything other than running water." And Sean says, "You hearing running water? Everything is frozen." Ted says, "I'm hearing it too." And immediately, they all decide it's time to go. Sean starts the car, turns around, and heads back in the direction of the school as fast as he can. They start hearing more noises, like the place is coming to life. Sophia starts seeing all these transparent figures crossing the road in front of them, but she doesn't say anything. After about a half an hour of driving as fast as they dare, They are out of the area, and the 2015 Halloween ghost extravaganza seems to be over. They slow down, and Sophia tells the boys what she saw. Sean says, "I saw them too. I didn't want to say anything because I thought I was just so freaked out that I was seeing things." And Ted says, "I was hoping I was the only one who saw anything, but now you guys have just confirmed my greatest fear. We really did see ghosts." The rest of the ride is quiet. No one says a thing. They're too freaked out. Sophia never goes back there again, and she, Sean, and Ted never talk about it again. She lives in Texas now and hopes the ghosts don't find her. This next odd encounter comes from an in-betweener who is still very much afraid of being labeled as crazy. So we're going to change her name to Maria. Maria's experience happens in 1988 in Moreno Valley, California. She and her husband have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. But Friday nights are reserved date nights for Maria and her husband. Thankfully, they have lots of ties to their church, so it's usually not too hard to line up a babysitter. This particular Friday night, Maria feeds the kids, gives them a bath, and gets them ready for bed. Right about the time that she's getting the kids into their PJs, her husband leaves to go pick up the babysitter. Their house has 3 bedrooms, and the 2 boys share a bedroom in the front, which has this really big window. It's so big that if you look out, you can see almost the entire neighborhood. And the street is really well lit, so even at night, you can still see pretty much everything that's going on outside. So her youngest son and her daughter are in their PJs, and she's in the boys' room helping her oldest son get ready for bed. As she's helping them, she notices a flash of light out of the corner of her eye. She looks up to see what it is and sees something she still doesn't understand. Across the street, just walking down the sidewalk, is a young guy in his early to mid-20s. He's clean cut with short hair, wearing jeans, tennis shoes, and a light-colored t-shirt. Nothing special, right? Except most guys his age don't walk around outside totally encapsulated in a large blue transparent ball of light. It's like some kind of force field from a sci-fi movie. And he's moving in a way that's not quite natural, like a fluid walking motion. His movements are robotic, but Maria can tell he's not a robot. He looks human and he looks intelligent. Even freakier is when he walks fast or starts to run, this blue bubble starts to change, become more pixelated, and the edges around the bubble become jagged, almost like the bit rate can't keep up with the speed. Her son sees him too. He points his finger at the man outside and says, "Look, Mommy, the lightning man." The moment the boy says that, the lightning man stops dead in his tracks and looks straight at Maria. It's like he heard what her son just said from the inside of the house behind a closed window. Maria gets the feeling that he is just as surprised to see them as they are to see him. The lightning man stands there just staring at Maria, and she is just staring right back. While the two are locked in the stare down, the pixelated edges of the bright blue bubble around him smooth out as it kind of pulsates in and out. Then suddenly the guy breaks his stare, turns, and takes off running at a speed that Maria has never seen any human move on foot before, as the blue translucent bubble around him changes back to jagged and pixely again. And the light inside the bubble moves around the man almost like encapsulated lightning. Just as the lightning man takes off, Maria's husband pulls into the driveway with the babysitter but sees nothing. Maria says that neither she nor her son ever felt threatened at all. It's just kind of a wow kind of moment. Maria and her husband leave and go out for their date night as planned. And she thinks about telling him what she saw, but she knows that if she does, he'll think she's nuts. So she keeps it to herself. And it instead becomes one of those secret touch point moments that she and her son still occasionally talk about to this day. So, what is it that Maria and her son saw? Is this bubble mechanism a way to travel to different times or different dimensions? Maybe it's like a life support bubble for beings from another planet. No matter what it actually was, Maria is sure it was not from 1988 Moreno Valley, California. And her experience certainly could be described as catching lightning in a bottle. You know, one thing that I can never quite fathom is how many different ways the world can turn weird. Like from Bigfoot to a tiny glimmerman to a guy rolling around in an electrified hamster ball. What is going on? If you'd like to hear more of the insane things happening in our world, click right here. It will not disappoint. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.